Daesung was cleaning near the diplomatic suites when he felt someone watching him. He looked up from his mop and saw her. A tall figure stood in the corridor, scales shimmering with deep colors that spoke of age and authority. She was like Hana, but bigger, more impressive. Her scales were perfectly maintained, shining like jewels. She wore flowing robes that marked her as someone important, very important. The woman's eyes were the same purple as Hana's, but these eyes were cold and hard. She looked at Daesung the way someone might look at dirt on their shoe. Daesung had seen that look before from other wealthy aliens. It was the look that said he was beneath them, that his work made him less than they were. But Daesung had also learned not to judge too quickly. He put down his mop and bowed respectfully, the way one would greet any important visitor. "Good evening," he said politely. "Can I help you with something?" The woman walked closer. Her movements were smooth and controlled, like a predator deciding whether to strike. She stopped a few feet away from him. When she spoke, her voice was cold and sharp like ice. "You are the human." The cleaner, Daesung, it wasn't a question. She knew who he was. Daesung felt a chill run down his back. Something was wrong here. How did this important alien know his name? "Yes, ma'am," he said. "That's me. I am Matriarch Yuna," the woman said. "Ambassador of the scaled caste to this station. And you have been spending time with my daughter." Daesung's mind raced. Daughter. Hana was this woman's daughter. Suddenly everything made sense. The child hiding in corridors. The neglected appearance. The loneliness. Hana hadn't been lost. Hana had been hiding from her own family. "Hana," Daesung said quietly. "She's your daughter." Yuna's scales rippled with dark colors. Anger, Daesung realized. She was very angry. But she kept her voice controlled and cold. "What have you done to her?" Yuna asked. "What corruption have you planted in her mind?" "Corruption?" Daesung was confused. "I don't understand. I've just been kind to her. She was alone and hungry, so I shared my food. She seemed lonely, so I talked to her. I haven't done anything wrong." "Haven't done anything wrong?" Yuna's voice rose slightly. Her tail lashed behind her. "You have made her speak. A child of the scaled caste, speaking before her maturity ceremony. Do you understand what you have done?" Daesung stood his ground. He was scared, yes. This woman had power and authority. She could probably have him fired or thrown off the station with a single word. But he thought about Hana, about the small child who had learned to smile again, who asked questions about the world with wonder in her eyes. "I helped a lonely child," Daesung said firmly. "That's what I did. If there's something wrong with that, then I don't understand your culture." "No," Yuna said, stepping closer. "You do not understand. In our culture, children remain silent until they reach maturity. Silence teaches them to listen. Silence teaches them to think before they speak. Silence is wisdom. It is our way. It has been our way for thousands of years. But Hana is just a child," Daesung said. "Children need to talk. They need to ask questions. That's how they learn." "That is the human way," Yuna said. "Not our way. And now, because of you, my daughter has broken our most sacred rule. She has spoken. She has asked questions. She has revealed herself as defective." "Defective?" The word made Daesung angry. "She's not defective. She's smart and curious and kind. Those are good things." "In your culture, perhaps," Yuna said. Her voice was tired now, less cold. "But in mine, a child who speaks before maturity is marked as outcast. She will be shamed. Other families will not form alliances with ours. She will never be able to take her place in society. She will be an outsider for the rest of her life." Daesung felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He had been trying to help Hana. He had wanted to make the little dragon happy. But instead he had ruined her life. He hadn't known. He hadn't understood. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "I didn't know. I never wanted to hurt her. I was just trying to be kind." Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Some of the anger left her eyes. She seemed tired now and sad. "Very, very sad, I know," she said quietly. "I have watched the security recordings. Every night for 3 weeks I have watched you with my daughter. I saw you share your food with her. I saw you show her pictures of your world. I saw you fix broken things and explain why you do the work you do. I saw her smile for the first time in many cycles." She paused and her voice became even softer. "I saw my daughter happy, something I have not seen since we came to this station." Daesung didn't know what to say. Yuna walked to the wall and leaned against it, as if she suddenly felt very heavy. She looked down at her hands, at the perfectly maintained scales and sharp claws. Do you know why Hana was hiding in these corridors? Yuna asked. Do you know why she was alone and hungry? Daesung shook his head. Because I was following our traditions, Yuna said. Our children are taught from hatching that silence is strength. When Hana tried to speak as a small child, I corrected her. When she asked questions, I told her to be silent and observe. I did everything right. Everything our culture demands of a mother. Tears were forming in Yuna's eyes now, something Daesung had never seen from one of the scaled cast before. But it hurt her. Yuna continued. I saw the light leave her eyes. I watched my bright, curious daughter become silent and withdrawn. She stopped eating properly. She started hiding in the corridors. And I told myself it was normal, that she would adjust, that our ways were right and good. But deep down, I knew I was watching my daughter fade away. Then I came to this station for diplomatic work, Yuna said. And one night I checked the security feeds to make sure Hana was safe. That's when I saw you, a human cleaner, someone our people would consider beneath notice, sitting on the floor with my daughter. Sharing food. Telling stories. Treating her like a person, not like a tradition to be followed. Yuna looked up at Daesung and her eyes were full of pain and confusion. I watched every night after that, she said. I watched my daughter come back to life. I watched her learn to smile again, to laugh, to ask questions about the world. And I realized something terrible. I realized that a stranger, a human cleaner, had shown my daughter more love and kindness in 3 weeks than I had shown her in cycles of following our traditions. That's not true, Daesung said gently. You're her mother. She needs you. I'm just someone who was nice to her. You gave her something I took away, Yuna said. You gave her permission to be herself, to speak, to wonder, to live. She straightened up and looked at Daesung with new determination in her eyes. But now we have a problem, she said. According to our law, Hana has broken the silence. She must be judged. The Council of Matriarchs will decide her fate. And the punishment for early speech is severe. She could be sent away from our family, marked as outcast, forbidden from ever returning to our home world. No, Daesung said. You can't let that happen. She's just a child. I am one matriarch among many, Yuna said. I cannot simply ignore our laws. The other families are already suspicious. If they find out Hana has been speaking, they will demand justice. Then what do we do? Daesung asked. He felt desperate. He couldn't let Hana suffer because of his kindness. There had to be a way to fix this. Yuna looked at him carefully as if seeing him for the first time. Not as a cleaner or a human or someone beneath her, but as a person who cared about her daughter. I do not know, she said honestly, but I know I cannot lose my daughter. Not to our traditions, not to anything. I have already lost her once by following the old ways. I will not make that mistake again. She moved closer to Daesung and spoke in a low, urgent voice. You are human, she said. Your people are new to the galaxy, but you have something we do not. You question things. You change. You adapt. You find new solutions to old problems. Help me. Help me find a way to save my daughter. Daesung thought hard. He was just a cleaner. He wasn't smart enough to solve political problems. He didn't understand alien laws and traditions, but he thought about what he did know. He knew how to fix broken things. He knew how to clean up messes. Maybe this was just another kind of problem that needed fixing. What if, he said slowly, what if we showed them that your old way isn't the only way? What if we proved that letting children speak makes them stronger, not weaker? How? Yuna asked. The traditions have existed for thousands of years. No one questions them. Then maybe, Daesung said, it's time someone did. 3 weeks had passed since Daesung first met the little dragon. Every night when he came to clean the diplomatic corridors, the child was there waiting. The little one always hid behind the same ventilation unit until Daesung arrived. Then those purple eyes would peek out, watching him set up his cleaning supplies. Daesung always brought extra food now. Sometimes he brought sweet bread from the station's bakery. Other times he brought fruit or rice cakes. The child ate everything he offered, and slowly, the dull patches on the little dragon's scales began to shine again. The scratches healed. The child looked healthier now, but the little dragon still never spoke. Not a single word. Daesung didn't mind. He talked enough for both of them. While he cleaned, he told stories about Earth. He described the oceans that covered most of his home planet. He talked about mountains that reached so high their tops were covered in snow. He told the child about cities full of lights and forests full of life. The little dragon listened to everything. Sometimes the child would move closer when a story got interesting. Daesung noticed the small tail would swish back and forth when the child was excited. The purple eyes would get wider when he described something amazing. Even without words, Daesung could tell the child was happy during their time together. One night Daesung brought pictures. He had loaded them on his old data pad, the one he used to call home sometimes. He sat down on the floor near where the child was sitting. He showed pictures of Earth's blue oceans. "This is where I grew up," Daesung said, pointing at the screen. "That little island there. You can't see it well in this picture, but my house was near the water. I could hear the waves every morning." The child leaned closer to look at the pictures. Those small clawed hands reached out but didn't touch the data pad. The little dragon just wanted to see better. Daesung held the pad where the child could see it clearly. "Do you have oceans on your world?" Daesung asked. He didn't expect an answer anymore. He just liked including the child in the conversation. But this time something different happened. The child's mouth opened slightly. A small sound came out so quiet Daesung almost missed it. It wasn't a word, just a sound, but it was something. The little dragon's eyes went wide like the child was surprised by their own voice. Daesung pretended not to notice. He had learned that drawing attention to things sometimes made people uncomfortable. So he just kept showing pictures and talking like nothing had happened. But inside his heart felt warm. That small sound was progress. The next night, Daesung brought a broken light panel that needed fixing. He wasn't just a cleaner. He also did small repairs around the station. It helped him earn a little extra money. He sat down in the corridor with his tools spread out around him. The little dragon came out from behind the ventilation unit and sat nearby, watching him work. "This light has been broken for 2 days," Daesung said, carefully opening the panel. "The problem is probably just a loose wire. These old panels break all the time." He worked slowly, checking each wire and connection. The child watched his hands move. Daesung explained what he was doing, even though he wasn't sure the child understood technical things. "See this wire here? It connects the power source to the light element. If it gets loose, the light won't work. Simple problem, simple fix." He reconnected the wire and closed the panel. The light flickered and then came on, shining brightly. Daesung smiled. The little dragon's tail swished happily. Then it happened. The child spoke. One single word, quiet but clear. "Why?" Daesung stopped moving. He looked at the child. Those purple eyes stared back at him, waiting. The little dragon had spoken. An actual word. "Why what?" Daesung asked gently, keeping his voice calm. He didn't want to scare the child back into silence. The child pointed at the light panel. "Why, you fix?" The words came out slowly, like they were hard to say, but they were real words in the common language that most species used. The child could talk. The little dragon had chosen to talk to him. Daesung sat back and thought about the question. Why did he fix things? It was a good question, actually. An important question, because things break sometimes, he said. And when they break, someone needs to fix them. "If I don't fix this light, this corridor will be dark. People might trip and fall. They might get hurt, so I fix it to help people stay safe." The child tilted their head, thinking about this answer. Then another question came. "Why? You clean?" "For the same reason," Daesung said. "If I don't clean, the station gets dirty. Dirt can make people sick. It makes things ugly. Cleaning makes the world a little bit nicer for everyone." "Why you?" the child asked. The little dragon pointed at Daesung. "Why you do this?" Now that was the real question. Why did Daesung do this work? He was human. His people had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. Humans weren't rich like the scaled caste. They weren't powerful like the warrior species. They weren't ancient and wise like the scholar races. Humans were new and poor, and many other species looked down on them. On this station, there were machines that could clean. There were robots that could fix lights, but machines cost money to buy and maintain. It was cheaper to hire people like Daesung, species that needed work, people who would do simple jobs for low pay. But Daesung had never thought of his work as beneath him. His grandmother had taught him something important. She said that all honest work had dignity. It didn't matter if you were cleaning floors or leading planets. What mattered was doing your job well and treating people with kindness. "I do this because it needs to be done," Daesung said, "and because I'm good at it. There's no shame in making things clean and fixing things that are broken. Someone has to do it. Why not me? The child looked at him for a long time. Those purple eyes seemed to see deep into him. Then the little dragon did something new. The child smiled. It was a small smile and it showed tiny sharp teeth, but it was genuine and happy. You, good, the child said. Dae-sung felt his throat get tight with emotion. He blinked quickly. Thank you, he said. You're good too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Dae-sung had an idea. Do you have a name? He asked. Can I know what to call you? The child hesitated. The little dragon looked down at their hands, the small claws opening and closing nervously. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, the child said, Hana. Hana. Dae-sung repeated. That's a beautiful name. I'm happy to meet you properly, Hana. Hana looked up at him and smiled again. This smile was bigger than the first one. The child's scales shimmered with colors, blues and purples and greens all mixing together. Dae-sung had learned that when the scaled cast's colors got brighter, it meant they were feeling strong emotions. Hana was happy. Really, truly happy. From that night on, Hana talked more. Not a lot, but enough. The child asked questions about everything. Why did stars shine? Why was space cold? Why did different species look so different? Dae-sung answered every question as best as he could. Sometimes he didn't know the answer, and he said so honestly. Hana seemed to like that Dae-sung didn't pretend to know everything. They talked about dreams. Hana wanted to see a real ocean someday. The child had only seen pictures and videos. Dae-sung promised that if Hana ever came to Earth, he would take the little dragon to see the sea. They talked about food from different worlds. Hana told him about the traditional meals of the scaled caste. Dae-sung shared recipes his grandmother had taught him. They laughed together when Dae-sung tried to describe what a hamburger was, and Hana looked confused. Every night became something special. Dae-sung still cleaned the corridors. He still fixed broken things, but now he had a friend. A small dragon-like friend who was learning that talking and asking questions wasn't something to be afraid of. What Dae-sung didn't know was that they weren't alone. High above in the security office, cameras recorded everything that happened in the station's corridors, and someone had been watching those recordings every single night. Someone who saw her daughter speaking for the first time in cycles, someone whose heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Matriarch Yuna stood in the dark security office, her own scales reflecting the light from the monitors. She watched the human cleaner and her daughter sitting together on the floor. She watched them share food and stories. She watched her daughter smile and laugh and ask questions, and Yuna didn't know whether to feel grateful or terrified. Because in her culture, what was happening on those screens was forbidden. Children of the scaled caste were not supposed to speak until they reached maturity. Silence was wisdom. Silence was strength. Silence was the way. But watching her daughter's happiness, Yuna began to wonder if the old ways were truly the right ways. The space station floated quietly in the darkness between stars. It was called Epsilon 7, and it was home to many different aliens from across the galaxy. The station had tall towers and long corridors that connected different sections. Some areas were for the rich and important visitors. Other areas were for workers and traders. And some areas, like the lower maintenance levels, were places most people never visited. Dae-sung worked in those forgotten places. He was a human, one of the few on the station. His job was simple: he cleaned. Every night, when most beings were sleeping, he pushed his cleaning cart through the empty hallways. He mopped floors, wiped walls, and made sure everything looked nice for the next day. It wasn't exciting work, but Dae-sung didn't mind. He liked the quiet. He liked making dirty things clean again. Tonight was like any other night. Dae-sung pushed his cart down the long corridor near the diplomatic quarters. This was where the important aliens stayed when they visited the station. The walls here were fancier than in other places. There were decorations from different worlds and soft lights that changed colors slowly. Dae-sung had cleaned this area 100 times before. He started mopping the floor, moving his mop in steady circles. The water made a soft splashing sound. Dae-sung hummed a song from Earth while he worked. It was an old song his grandmother used to sing. He didn't remember all the words anymore, but the tune made him feel less alone. That's when he heard it. A small sound like something breathing. Dae-sung stopped humming. He looked around but saw nothing. He went back to mopping, but then he heard it again. It was coming from behind the large ventilation unit near the wall. Dae-sung put down his mop and walked closer. He bent down and looked behind the unit. Two large eyes stared back at him. They were purple and shiny like polished stones. Daesung didn't move. He had learned that fast movement scared most creatures. "Hello there," he said softly. "Are you okay?" The eyes blinked but didn't move away. Slowly, a small shape came out from behind the ventilation unit. It was a child, but not a human child. The little being had scales that shimmered like oil on water. They changed from deep blue to green to purple as the light hit them. Small ridges ran along the child's head and down the back. The hands had 4 fingers with tiny claws. A thin tail wrapped around the child's legs. Daesung recognized what this child was. The scaled caste. They were one of the oldest and proudest species in the galaxy. They controlled many worlds and had more money than most other races. They were also very strict about their rules and traditions. But this little one looked scared and alone. The child was small, probably very young. The scales looked dull in some places, like the child wasn't being taken care of properly. The purple eyes watched Daesung with fear and curiosity mixed together. "It's okay," Daesung said. He sat down on the floor, making himself smaller and less scary. "I won't hurt you. My name is Daesung. I clean the floors here." The child didn't speak. The little dragon just stared at him. Daesung noticed the child was shaking slightly. Was it cold? Scared? Hungry? "Are you hungry?" Daesung asked. He reached into his cart and pulled out his lunchbox. He always brought food from home because the station's cafeteria was expensive. Tonight he had rice and vegetables with some dried fish. Simple food, but good. He opened the box and held it out. The child's nose twitched. Those purple eyes looked at the food, then at Daesung, then back at the food. Slowly, very slowly, one small hand reached out and took a piece of the dried fish. The child sniffed it carefully before putting it in their mouth. The little dragon's eyes went wide. The child quickly took another piece, then another. Daesung smiled. He was right, the child was hungry. He pushed the whole box closer. The little one ate everything, even the rice that fell on the floor. "Slow down," Daesung said gently. "You'll make yourself sick." When the food was gone, the child looked at Daesung again. This time there was less fear in those purple eyes. The little dragon moved a bit closer but still kept some distance. Daesung didn't try to touch the child. He just sat there, letting the little one get used to him. "Do you live here?" Daesung asked. "Where are your parents?" No answer. The child just watched him with those big eyes. Daesung wondered if the little one could even understand his language. But the scaled caste were known to be smart. They learned languages quickly. This child probably understood him but chose not to speak. "Well," Daesung said, standing up slowly, "I need to finish my work, but you can stay here if you want. I won't tell anyone." He went back to his mop and continued cleaning. He kept humming his grandmother's song. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the little dragon watching him. The child didn't run away. Instead, the little one sat down against the wall and just observed. Daesung worked for another hour, cleaning the entire corridor. The child watched him the whole time. Sometimes Daesung would talk to himself, saying things like, "This spot is really dirty," or "almost done with this section." The child never responded, but those purple eyes followed his every movement. When Daesung finished cleaning, he looked at the little dragon. The child was still sitting against the wall, but now the small body was leaning to one side. The child was getting sleepy. "You should go home," Daesung said. "Your family is probably worried about you." The child didn't move. Daesung walked closer and bent down. The little dragon tensed up but didn't run away. Up close, Daesung could see that the child's scales were indeed not well maintained. They were small scratches and dull patches. "Something was wrong here. Are you lost?" Daesung asked. "Do you need help finding your room?" The child's mouth opened slightly, like they wanted to say something. But then the little dragon closed it again and looked down at the floor. Daesung noticed something sad in those purple eyes. This wasn't just a lost child. This was a lonely child. "Okay," Daesung said softly. "I understand. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but I'll be here tomorrow night too. Same time. If you want more food, you can come find me." He stood up and pushed his cart down the corridor. When he reached the corner, he looked back. The little dragon was still sitting there, watching him leave. Daesung waved. The child didn't wave back, but those purple eyes seemed a little less sad than before. Daesung went home that night thinking about the small dragon child. He wondered why such a young being was alone in the corridors at night. Where were the parents? Why did the child look so neglected? The scaled caste were rich and powerful. They took care of their children, everyone knew that. But something was different about this little one. Daesung could feel it, and even though he was just a cleaner, just a simple human who mopped floors, he decided he would help this child if he could. Because that's what humans did. They helped those who needed it, no matter who they were or where they came from. Tomorrow night he would bring extra food, and maybe, just maybe, he could make that little dragon smile. They met in secret, Daesung and Yuna, in a small maintenance room where no one would think to look for a matriarch and a cleaner. Hana was there too, sitting close to her mother. The little dragon held Yuna's hand tightly, scared but trying to be brave. "I've been thinking," Daesung said. He had spent the whole day thinking, actually barely sleeping. On Earth we had traditions too. Old ways of doing things that people thought could never change. But they did change because people questioned them. They asked if the old ways were really the best ways. Yuna listened carefully. She was different now than when they first met. She didn't look at him like he was beneath her. She looked at him like an equal, like someone whose ideas mattered. "Give me an example," Yuna said. Daesung thought about his grandmother. She had told him many stories about the old days. "In my grandmother's time," he said, "many people believed that women couldn't do the same work as men. They said women were too weak, too emotional, too different. It was tradition. Some people thought it would always be that way, but women questioned that tradition. They showed they could do anything men could do. They proved the old beliefs wrong, and slowly things changed. But that was humans," Yuna said. "We are different. Our traditions come from our biology, from the way our species evolved. We believe silence made our young ones stronger." "Did it, though?" Daesung asked. "Look at Hana. Was she stronger when she was silent? Or is she stronger now, when she can ask questions and learn?" Yuna looked at her daughter. Hana looked back with those big purple eyes. The little dragon's scales were bright now, healthy and shining, so different from the dull, neglected child Daesung had first met. "She is stronger now," Yuna admitted quietly. "I cannot deny that. But convincing the other matriarchs will be difficult. They are old and set in their ways. They will not listen to arguments about change." "Then we don't argue," Daesung said. "We show them." "Show them what?" Daesung smiled. An idea had formed in his mind. It was risky, maybe crazy, but it might work. "We show them what humans do best," he said. "We show them cooperation. We show them that different species working together can create something better than any one species alone. And we show them that Hana isn't defective or broken. She's special." He turned to Hana. "Would you be brave enough to talk to the matriarchs? Would you tell them what you've learned?" Hana's eyes went wide. She looked scared. She pressed closer to her mother. But then she looked at Daesung and he saw something else in her eyes. Trust. The little dragon trusted him. I can try," Hana said in her small voice. Yuna stroked her daughter's head gently. "You don't have to do this if you're scared." "But I want to help," Hana said. "I don't want to be sent away. I want to stay with you and Daesung." Daesung felt his heart warm. He knelt down so he was at Hana's level. "You won't be alone," he said. "We'll be right there with you. And you know what? I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." Over the next few days, they made a plan. Yuna used her authority as an ambassador to call a special meeting. She told the other matriarchs that she had an important proposal about human-scaled caste relations. That got their attention. The scaled caste were always interested in political alliances and diplomatic opportunities. Daesung helped Hana prepare. They practiced what she would say. He taught her about Earth's history, about how humans learned and grew by questioning things. Hana listened to everything and asked more questions than ever. The little dragon was nervous but also excited. She wanted to show everyone what she could do. The day of the meeting came. The station's grand council chamber was filled with important members of the scaled caste. Matriarchs in flowing robes sat in a semicircle. Their scales reflected the light in brilliant colors. They looked powerful and ancient and impossible to convince. Daesung stood near the back of the room. He wasn't supposed to be there, really. Cleaners didn't attend diplomatic meetings. But Yuna had insisted. She said he was part of this and he needed to be present. Yuna stood in the center of the room with Hana beside her. The little dragon looked so small next to all these important adults. But Hana stood straight, trying to be brave. "Honored matriarchs," Yuna began, "I have called this meeting to discuss a matter of great importance. For cycles, we have followed the tradition of silence for our young. We believed this made them wise and strong. But I propose that we reconsider this tradition. The room erupted in angry voices. The matriarchs spoke over each other, their scales flashing with dark colors. How dare Yuna question their ways? The traditions were sacred. They had worked for thousands of years. This was outrageous. One old matriarch, her scales nearly white with age, raised her hand for silence. The room quieted. Matriarch Yuna, the old one said, you speak of reconsidering our most fundamental tradition. This is not a small thing. Why would you suggest such a dangerous change? Because I have seen a different way, Yuna said. The humans have a different approach to raising their young. They encourage questions. They reward curiosity. And I have seen the results. She gestured to Hana. My daughter has spent time learning from a human. She has learned to speak, to question, to think for herself. And she has become stronger because of it, not weaker. Your daughter has broken our law. Another matriarch said coldly. She has spoken before maturity. She should be judged, not celebrated. I ask you to listen to her, Yuna said. Listen to what she has learned. Then decide if our old ways are truly the best ways. The old matriarch looked at Hana with hard eyes. Very well, she said. Let the child speak. Let us hear what corruption the humans have taught her. Hana stepped forward. Taesung could see the little dragon's hands shaking, but Hana took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was small at first, but it grew stronger as she continued. Honored matriarchs, Hana said, my name is Hana. For many cycles I was silent as our tradition demands. I did not speak. I did not ask questions. I tried to be good and follow the rules. She paused, gathering her courage. But I was not happy. I was lonely. I felt like I had no voice, like nothing I thought or felt mattered. I became sick because I stopped eating. I hid in the corridors because I didn't want to face another day of silence. The matriarchs shifted uncomfortably. Some of their scales showed colors of concern. They were listening. Then I met Daesung, Hana continued. He is a human cleaner. He works on this station doing simple jobs. Many of us would think his work is beneath notice, but he taught me something important. What did he teach you? The old matriarch asked. He taught me that all work has dignity, Hana said. He cleans floors and fixes broken things because those jobs need to be done. He doesn't feel ashamed of his work. He does it well and takes pride in making things better. He taught me that there is honor in helping others, no matter how simple the task. She looked around at all the important matriarchs. He also taught me that asking questions makes us smarter, not weaker. When I asked him why he did his work, he had good answers. When I asked about Earth and humans and the universe, he answered honestly. Sometimes he said he didn't know, and that was okay too. He taught me that learning never stops. One of the younger matriarchs leaned forward. But our tradition teaches that silence makes one wise. How do you respond to that? Hana thought carefully. I was silent for many cycles, she said. I listened and observed as I was taught. But I didn't understand most of what I heard and saw because I couldn't ask questions about it. Now that I can speak, I learn so much faster. I understand more. I think better. Silence didn't make me wise. It just made me quiet. The old matriarch studied Hana for a long time. You speak well for one so young, she said. But you are one child. How do we know this is not just your individual experience? How do we know that speaking early would benefit all our young? This was the moment Daesung had been waiting for. He stepped forward from the back of the room. Every matriarch turned to look at him. Some looked angry that a cleaner had dared to enter their space. Others looked curious. Honored matriarchs, Daesung said, bowing respectfully. May I speak? The old matriarch looked at Yuna. Yuna nodded. The old one gestured for Daesung to continue. My people, humans, we are new to the galaxy, Daesung said. We are not as old as your species. We don't have your wealth or your power, but we have one thing that has helped us survive and grow. We question everything. We are not afraid to change when we find better ways. He walked to stand beside Hana. When I met this child, I didn't see someone defective or broken. I saw someone lonely and scared. I treated her with kindness because that's what humans do. We believe that every person, no matter their age or status, deserves respect and care. You dare to lecture us about our own children? One matriarch said angrily. No, Daesung said. I'm not lecturing. I'm sharing what I've learned. On Earth, we learned that children are not small adults waiting to grow up. They are their own people, learning and developing. They need guidance, yes, but they also need freedom to ask questions and make mistakes and discover who they are. He looked at all the matriarchs. Your tradition of silence may have worked in the past, but the galaxy is changing. Species must work together now, and communication is more important than ever. Children who learn to speak and question and think for themselves will be stronger leaders in this new galaxy. The room was quiet. The matriarch saw the 3 days of waiting felt like 3 years. Dae-sung went about his normal work, cleaning corridors and fixing broken equipment. But his mind was always on Hana and the upcoming vote. He had started something that could change an entire species' culture. The responsibility felt heavy. Yuna spent those days in meetings with other matriarchs, talking quietly, sharing her observations, trying to convince them that change wasn't dangerous. Some listened, some refused to even consider it. The debate grew heated across the station. Word had spread about the proposal and everyone had an opinion. Hana stayed close to her mother during those days. The little dragon was nervous but also excited. She had found her voice and she didn't want to lose it again. She practiced speaking every day, asking Dae-sung questions when he came by, reading books out loud to her mother in the evenings. On the morning of the vote, Dae-sung was cleaning the observation deck when Yuna found him. She looked tired. Her scales were dull from stress and lack of sleep. "Today is the day," she said quietly. "I know," Dae-sung replied. "Are you ready?" "I don't know," Yuna admitted. "I've done everything I can, but I fear it might not be enough. The old ways are strong. Many matriarchs are afraid of change." "Change is always scary," Dae-sung said. He put down his cleaning supplies and walked to the large window. Outside, stars filled the endless darkness. "My grandmother used to say that fear of change is natural, but staying the same when you know something is wrong, that's worse than being afraid." Yuna joined him at the window. "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She was," Dae-sung said with a sad smile. "She died before I came to this station, but she taught me good things. She taught me that kindness matters more than status. She taught me that honest work is never shameful. And she taught me that standing up for what's right is worth any risk." "I wish I had met her," Yuna said. "She would have liked you," Dae-sung said. "She always said that parents who truly love their children are the bravest people in the world, because love means being willing to change even when it's hard." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Yuna spoke again. "Whatever happens today," she said, "I want you to know something. You saved my daughter. You gave her back her joy and her spirit. Even if the vote goes against us, even if we have to leave our people, I will always be grateful to you." "You don't need to thank me," Dae-sung said. "Hana taught me something too. She reminded me why I do this work, why I left Earth and came out here to the stars. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help people. For a long time I thought I was just a cleaner, just someone doing simple work. But Hana showed me that kindness is never simple. It can change lives." Yuna placed her hand on his shoulder. It was a gesture of respect between equals, something she would never have done before meeting him. "You are more than a cleaner, Dae-sung," she said. "You are a teacher. You are a friend. And you are someone who has changed the course of history for my people, whether they realize it yet or not." The vote was held in the council chamber. This time more people were allowed to attend. Other species ambassadors came to watch. Station officials came. Even some regular workers like Dae-sung were permitted to observe. This had become bigger than just one family's problem. It had become a test of whether an ancient species could adapt to a changing galaxy. Hana sat between her mother and Dae-sung in the gallery. The little dragon's hand gripped Dae-sung's tightly. Her scales shifted colors rapidly, showing her nervousness. But she held her head high, trying to be brave. The matriarchs entered in their formal robes. The old matriarch, who had spoken at the last meeting, took the center position. She looked around at everyone assembled. "We have debated for 3 days," she said. "We have discussed tradition and change, the old ways and new possibilities. We have heard arguments from all sides. Now it is time to vote." She turned to face the other matriarchs. "The question before us is this. Should we allow a trial period where selected families may permit their young to speak before maturity? Should we test whether this change might benefit our species?" One by one, the matriarchs spoke their votes. Some voted no, their voices firm and certain. These were the ones who believed the old ways were sacred, who thought any change was dangerous, but others voted yes. Some spoke of their own children who had struggled with silence. Others talked about the changing galaxy and the need to adapt. A few simply said they trusted Yuna's judgment and wanted to see what would happen. Dae-sung kept count in his head. The votes were close, so close. It all came down to the old matriarch. She hadn't voted yet. She was the eldest, the most respected. Her vote would carry extra weight. If she voted no, others might change their votes to match hers. If she voted yes, it might convince the uncertain ones to take a chance on change. The old matriarch stood silent for a long time. Her ancient scales reflected the light, showing colors that were hard to read. She looked at Hana, studying the little dragon carefully. Then she looked at Yuna and finally at Daesung. "I have lived a long time," the old matriarch said. "I have seen many things. I have watched our species grow and prosper. I have followed our traditions faithfully because I believed they made us strong." She paused, and the entire room held its breath. "But I have also watched many of our young struggle with silence," she continued. "I have seen children become withdrawn and sad, just as young Hana did. I told myself it was necessary, that they would grow stronger through their struggle. But now I wonder if I was wrong." She turned to address everyone in the room. "I have watched the recordings of Daesung and Hana together. I saw a human cleaner, someone many of us would consider insignificant, treat a child with more genuine kindness than some of us show our own young. I saw a child bloom under simple care and respect. And I asked myself a difficult question." The old matriarch's voice grew stronger. "If a stranger can help our children thrive simply by treating them as people worthy of being heard, what does that say about our traditions? What does it say about us?" She looked directly at Hana. "Young one, stand up." Hana stood, her legs shaking but her head held high. The old matriarch walked over to her, moving slowly but with purpose. She knelt down so she was at Hana's level, something no matriarch had probably ever done before. "I was silent as a child," the old matriarch said, "as were my children and their children. We all followed the tradition. But I have a secret I have never told anyone. When I was young, like you, I had so many questions. I wanted to ask about everything. But I had to stay silent. And I forgot most of those questions. I forgot what it felt like to be curious and full of wonder." She touched Hana's face gently. "You remind me of what I lost. You remind me that wisdom doesn't come from silence alone. It comes from asking questions and seeking answers. It comes from having the courage to speak, even when speaking is hard." The old matriarch stood and turned to face the other matriarchs. "I vote yes," she said clearly. "I vote to try this new way. Our traditions have served us for thousands of years, and I honor them. But traditions should serve the people, not the other way around. If this change helps our young ones thrive, then we must have the courage to embrace it." A murmur went through the room. Several matriarchs who had voted no looked uncertain now. One of them stood. "I wish to change my vote," she said. "I vote yes," another stood. "I also change my vote to yes." When the final count was made, the yes votes had won. Not by a large margin, but enough. The proposal passed. Families who wished to could allow their children to speak. There would be a trial period of 2 years. After that, they would evaluate the results and decide whether to make it permanent. The room erupted in conversation. Some people cheered. Others looked worried. But everyone knew this was a historic moment. An ancient species had voted to change one of their most fundamental traditions. Hana jumped up and hugged Daesung tightly. The little dragon was crying, but they were happy tears. "We did it," she said. "We really did it." Yuna embraced them both, her scales shining with bright, joyful colors. "Thank you," she whispered to Daesung. "Thank you for everything." Daesung felt tears in his own eyes. "You did this," he said. "Both of you. You had the courage to speak up." "I just listened." "No," Yuna said. "You did more than listen. You showed us a different way. You showed us that kindness and respect matter more than tradition and status. That is a gift beyond measure." In the weeks that followed, things changed on the station. Families from the scaled caste began to discuss the new policy. Some were eager to try it. Others remained skeptical. But slowly, more children began to speak. Their voices, silent for so long, began to fill the corridors. Daesung continued his work as a cleaner. He still mopped floors and fixed broken lights. But now, when he worked in the diplomatic areas, young scaled caste children would come to talk to him. They asked him questions about Earth and humans and his work. He answered them all, always taking time to listen and encourage their curiosity. Hana became something of a celebrity among the young ones. She had been the first to speak publicly, the first to challenge the old ways. Other children looked up to her. She handled the attention with grace, always remembering to be kind.